Alright, we're here with my first 80s Metallica album right here, Master of Puppets, and of course their third album overall, but this is the album that introduced me to their 1980s stuff. I'll let you know what my very first Metallica album is in a bit, but for now, this is the first that I've listened to from the 1980s. So, alright, we continue on with the third album by Metallica, Master of Puppets. This is capitalizing off the success of their first two albums, and it pays off in dividends here. Of course, this is where they really rake in the critical acclaim and the commercial success for the first time. Of course, this isn't as commercially successful as the Black Album or anything like that, but this is basically where Metallica got their first taste of real, big money-making success. Of course, the first two albums were successful too, but Master of Puppets, this was in the top 30 of the Billboard 200, so, I think Ride the Lightning was in the 200 too, but it was much lower in the rank. This just jumped up to the top 40, top 30, something like that. So hugely successful leap for this band here. This basically made Metallica even more of a household name in the 1980s, and this would continue to the stratosphere. But this is basically where it starts to really explode for this band. The name of Metallica starts to really explode in popularity, starting here. And because the first two albums did so well for this band, they were able to afford an even better production than Ride the Lightning. Ride the Lightning had kick-ass production, but the production on this album is even more polished. It's definitely a lot more professional sounding. The sound itself is even more refined than it was on Ride the Lightning. Ride the Lightning was basically where it got started. That's basically where they first got their taste of a more refined sound. Here on Master of Puppets, the sound is amplified. Everything's a lot more fresh and crisp here than it was on the previous two albums. Ride the Lightning stepped it up from Kill 'Em All. Master of Puppets steps it up from Ride the Lightning in terms of production. In a way, you could say that takes away from the rough edge of the previous two albums, which made Metallica so big amongst the speed metal community and all that. But at the same time, it definitely highlights the instruments a lot more. Everything you can hear a lot more clearly. Cliff Burton's bass, for example, is a lot more audible in the mix. And, of course, it doesn't take away from the aggression or anything like that. After Battery's acoustic intro, it immediately goes into the thrashy number that is Battery. And speaking of which, the album's track listing structure is actually very similar to the way Ride the Lightning was constructed. I know people have brought this up before, but it's definitely worth noting. You start off with the thrashy number with the acoustic intro, Fight Fire with the harpsichord, Battery with the acoustic guitar. Then after that you go into the title track, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets. Then after that you go into a more mid-tempo to slower paced song, For Whom the Bell Tolls, off Ride the Lightning. Then the thing that should not be off of Master of Puppets. Then you go into the more metal ballad-ish style song that it starts off slow at first, then gets heavier and faster later, Fade to Black. Then Welcome Home Sanitarium. Then after that, the track listing, the songs themselves actually switch around a little bit. They switch track listing numbers, although the formula remains the same. You have the instrumentals, Call of Cthulhu off of Ride the Lightning, then you have Orion off of Master of Puppets. You have another blazing fast thrash metal song, Trapped Under Ice from Ride the Lightning, Damage Incorporated off of Master of Puppets. You also have the more riff-heavy songs, the ones that really focus a lot more on the riffs, Creeping Death off of Ride the Lightning, then Disposable Heroes off of Master of Puppets. They're both very riff-oriented. if you know what I mean. You could definitely tell for sure. And then you have the lesser known songs that don't really get a lot of exposure, but yet are really cool anyways. Escape off of Ride the Lightning, Leper Messiah off of Master of Puppets. I'm not saying that's bad or anything like that. It's not like they're ripping off from themselves. I've just noticed that there's a certain formula between Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. Almost like they wanted to recreate another one just so they could try to capitalize off of Ride the Lightning success, which ironically became even more successful. I just noticed that with the track listing, like the number of tracks, the song structures, and even the album covers look very similar. The font on the Metallica logo font looks very similar. It has like a three-dimensional thing, like on the front. Although, I mean, the album covers look different, but they both evoke like a very dark, grim scene below, like Ride the Lightning with the electric chair, Master of Puppets with the graves and the marionettes and all that. Of course, different, but obviously they evoke a similar mood, a similar theme that it's just a very underlying occurrence that I've noticed, which is cool, which I kind of like. Despite its similarities to Ride the Lightning, this album definitely has its signature hits. Battery, Welcome Home Sanitarium, Disposable Heroes. Tons of great songs to choose from, and if there had to be a signature song from this band, Master of Puppets, the title track itself is, I believe it just eclipsed Creeping Death as their most played song live, so that definitely has to account for something. This is definitely one of their more iconic songs in their entire discography. It's probably the best known song next to One that they've made in the 1980s era. That chorus is extremely infectious. The middle section where they have the cleaner, I wouldn't say acoustic, but just cleaner guitars, so to speak. It's just a very hypnotizing little section that I always love. Yeah, there's really not much to say about these songs. Everybody knows them, everybody loves them, so yeah, it's great stuff. James Hetfield, of course, is at his probably his absolute peak as a lead vocalist. He's probably at his most refined when it comes to lead vocals. Many people would say that this is his peak. I would definitely agree with them. Although I love his performance on "Injustice for All" too. I think here this entire era really, like after Ride the Lightning, was probably his most refined peak. From Master of Puppets to the Black Album, he was basically at his absolute top best. And while Cliff Burton definitely has way less songwriting credits on this album than he did on Ride the Lightning, his influence is very prominent and bold throughout this release. Even on the songs he didn't write, there's just some very Cliff Burtonisms that you notice throughout this album, which definitely gives it that special kind of mysterious edge that you loved from Ride the Lightning. More classical influences, more H.P. Lovecraft styled lyrics, and all that. They're all here, just as they were on Ride the Lightning. Cliff Burton was definitely huge into that kind of stuff, so that's definitely very bold and apparent right here, as always. And I have to say, Orion is probably Cliff's signature masterpiece. I think he probably wrote the majority of this song here, and it definitely shows. Like in the middle section where it gets a bit more quiet, you definitely hear his bass very, very clearly, and of course it goes into like a more classical rhythm. No doubt, Cliff Burton, obviously, and it's very beautiful yet very heavy and adventurous at the same time. There's definitely a lot of exploration that goes on with this epic instrumental. This is like 100% Cliff Burton all over it. I mean, even though there's songwriting credits from a few of the other members, Cliff Burton, this is his song pretty much. This is all for him, and he definitely makes it shine brilliantly. And Kirk and Lars, of course, do a great job with their respective instruments, and yeah, they definitely sound a lot more refined than they did before. So yeah, great stuff all around from them. With all that good stuff being said, however, this album definitely doesn't hit me the same way as it did maybe 4 years ago. If you had asked me in 2009 or something what my favorite Metallica album was, it would be this or Injustice for All. They really flip flopped for me. I basically went with one or the other. I basically put them on like an even pedestal, but sometimes one or the other would outweigh the other. But yeah, I think I've overplayed the fuck out of this album in my time as a developing metalhead. I just fell in love with it like immediately when I first heard it, but I haven't really played it a lot since then. Like nowadays, it doesn't really click with me the same way. It definitely, I mean, of course, I still really like it. It just doesn't automatically click me with me like, oh yeah, this is awesome. It just, I don't know. If I get a bit more of a lukewarm reaction to this, probably because I've overplayed it a lot. Maybe I don't think the songwriting is quite as strong as Ride the Lightning, but that's just me anyway. But hey, like I said, this is still a very, very strong release. It showing this band at their prime just mere moments before Cliff Burton's tragic demise. As I'm reviewing this right now, this is actually the month in which Cliff Burton died. Um, so even though it's only got, there's only like a few more weeks from the time of this recording to September 27th, I believe, which was the day in which he died. I'm still gonna throw my horns up and say, rest in peace, Cliff Burton. I keep saying Clive Burr, but it's Cliff Burton. But yeah, anyway, rest in peace, Cliff Burton. You are awesome. We will never forget. Anyway, if anyone really wants to, if anyone's getting into the metal genre and they don't know where to start, I'd say Master of Puppets is a great option right here. This is definitely an iconic release. This is definitely one that you would definitely treasure for quite a long time. I still do. I mean, it doesn't resonate as much with me now, but it still definitely does. Why do you think I'm making this review anyway? It definitely has an impact that will stay with you forever, of course. With all that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time for Injustice for All.